Hello and welcome to my presentation on digital equity in rural Michigan. My name is Mariele Busch, and today I'll be presenting on this topic which is very close to me. It is something that I feel very passionately about, and it's an issue that I see in my local community where I work at a rural library. To begin with, I'd like to define what digital equity is. Digital equity, according to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. Digital equity is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. I'm sure many of you who work in the library sphere will see this play out in your libraries, where individuals who are impacted in these rural areas are not fully able to participate in the digital world because they don't have access in some form either to the technology or to the digital services or broadband available. For the purposes of time in this presentation, I will be focusing on the digital equity, particularly in the sphere of internet broadband connectivity. Steps towards digital equity. Why is there a need? What makes this have urgency? Well, as of 2019, moving forward, the percentage of Michigan workers who work remotely has tripled. In a world post-COVID, we are seeing a need for this, a real urgency. Jobs are predominantly moving online. There are many areas where people work exclusively remotely and they never have to come to the office. Furthermore, schools, and I've seen this in my own county, will have remote learning days because of flu outbreaks, COVID virus resurgences, things like that, where they just need to have a day of remote learning. If you're a family who doesn't have access to broadband internet and other digital devices, you're going to miss out. In rural Michigan, communities are seeing reduced educational and occupational prospects as a result of a lack of broadband access. Discussions for rural libraries on this topic. How can libraries affect change in this area? How are libraries able to make a positive dent in this effort to close the gap of digital equity? Why is this up for discussion in LIS forums, and why now? As mentioned on the previous slide, in an increasingly digital age, particularly in a post-COVID society, it is important to provide access to digital services and break down technological barriers that existed before and during the pandemic. There are a lot of new roles in technology emerging for libraries, and libraries see this in their own communities. We have the potential to change this through our work and through our services. And furthermore, post-COVID, everything is moving online. Everything is transitioning to this purely digital age in some corporations, in some educational systems. And so it's very important for people to have access that they need to digital services. So let's break this down further with statistics specifically around the mitten. And first, I'd like to do a map of broadband internet map. And this is going to be on a national level first, and then we'll zero in specifically on our state. Here in this map, and this is the current map that I found from MI New Economy that shows broadband internet accessed. It is currently the one listed on their site that I found, so we can assume, though, since this is 2014 to 2018, there have been some improvements, some changes, hopefully, and you can see that this is through a community survey with 5-year estimates as well through the U.S. Census Bureau. Nationally, you can see that there are areas that have a 54.9 and under % by county that has broadband internet subscription access. In the state of Michigan, you can see areas that fall either just above this at the 53 to 64.9% by county in South Central Michigan, and again up into the UP and on the western side of the state. So this is something that is impacting our state as well as on a national level. But let's look at a more detailed view of Michigan to understand our numbers. According to this survey, there are 212,701 underserved households currently in the state. Areas with availability of 54.9% and under by county are listed on that map, as we saw on the previous slide. Furthermore, you can see on this map, when we zero in on the state, there's detailed service areas in dark green, and then in lighter green, there's the FCC service availability listed. But there are many areas that aren't in this detailed service area. So there are a lot of rural areas that are still lacking, maybe not even being considered here. To discuss the issues in digital equity, we need to talk about how affordability really improves access. Currently, there are more than 212,000 households in our state that lack the opportunity to access a high-speed internet connection, and another additional 865,000 households facing barriers related to affordability, adoption, or digital literacy. Taken together, this means that approximately 31% of Michigan households do not have an affordable, reliable high-speed internet connection that meets their needs. So what role does the economy play in digital equity? Over on the left-hand side, you can see a chart from the Pew Research Center that breaks down how Americans with lower incomes have lower levels of technology adoption. In the dark blue shading, we can see participants in the survey who made less than $30,000 being represented, and the lightest blue shading refers to the people in the survey who made 100,000 or more throughout a fiscal year. Based on these statistics, we can see that household income determines access to technology. Accessibility is markedly higher in a $100,000 or more category across the board. And you can see that in every different chart laid out in the smartphone usage, desktop or laptop computers, home broadband, tablet computers, and then in all of the above categories, you can still see there is a marked difference in the people who make less than $30,000 a year and those who make $100,000 or more. It's almost 3 times the amount. Therefore, as they state, lower income equals lower levels of technology adoption. So digital literacy does have a direct correlation to income. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, a report in 2022 found that Michigan poverty rate now ranks 13th in the nation. The report says around 13% of the state lives in poverty, with the poverty rate increasing in 49 of 83 counties. Wayne, Mecosta, and Lake counties have the highest poverty rate at more than 20%. So for our state, the income rates are playing a direct role. They have a direct correlation to our local digital equity. This brings us to how our library is bridging this digital divide. I like to say bridging the digital divide because it's not an easy solution necessarily, but we're going to see different areas that libraries have made improvements on for their patrons. These areas are digital services. Again, for the sake of time, I'd like to focus mainly on the Wi-Fi aspect of digital services, but you'll see included in here technology as well. So Wi-Fi, that means internet capability, access for patrons for the World Wide Web. Cell service. Many people will come into a library and they won't have reception and they'll depend on getting on the public Wi-Fi to access their cell phones. Access to email and other mobile services that you don't have in your area is also afforded through the Wi-Fi at a public library. And finally, mobile hotspots. This is a newer concept, but mobile hotspot checkouts available at many libraries, even libraries that have very rural areas. Finally, technology. I do not want to completely glance over this, but additional technology that helps inform on this digital equity divide. These could include computers, printers, fax machines, and even tablets that are available for patrons to check out. Moving on, I'd like to show how libraries are being proactive with a real-life example. I want to highlight Elk Rapids District Library. They're located up near Grand Traverse Bay, and they are a very small rural library, yet they're increasing digital resources for their community. They're doing this in several forms, through mobile hotspot checkouts, through virtual programming and content, and they have a recent grant that has allowed them to purchase Chromebooks available for checkout. Even in this scenario where it's a very rural, small library, probably they don't have a very large budget to dedicate to these new emerging improvements of technology. They're utilizing local, state, and government resources to get the job done. They're using the MI83 Technology Libraries and Communities Grant, as well as grants available through their library cooperative. So even for a library that maybe doesn't have staff or the budget to do this, there are options available that they can then use to benefit their community. Again, back to bridging the digital divide. Libraries are stepping up to cover a lack of resources for rural areas. State programming is available. It is out there in a post-COVID attempts to instigate better Wi-Fi. There is even an office for Michigan broadband that is supposed to help improve the broadband access for these areas. However, as Isaac Constance notes in his article, Michigan has a broadband office to get Wi-Fi, but it's sitting empty. There is still a lack of funding for these projects. So the office was started post-pandemic, but still as of 2022, Constance reports that it is hollow compared to how it was originally envisioned. Currently, 1 in every 8 Michiganders does not have any sort of internet access at home, and 1 more than that relies on their cell phone data plan as a source of internet access. From a personal standpoint, I know patrons at our library who do this. Until a few weeks ago, I was doing this myself because my mobile service carrier did not have an option for me to get a Wi-Fi hotspot through them or a Wi-Fi connection through them that would work for my needs. So I didn't have reliable internet either. It was all handheld from my mobile data plan. To continue the discussion of bridging the digital divide, I want to speak about those library offerings that we saw at the Elk Rapids District Library that are bridging this divide, those mobile hotspots. Other libraries are doing things such as computer, tablet, or technology checkouts as well. Again, increased cell reception in the library is key. Access to other services that you can get on the library's Wi-Fi 24/7 is ideal for patrons who can't make it into the library during open hours. And many libraries also offer classes and workshops on using technology or equipment, which is very important for patrons who are new to technology. Maybe they're even 65 and older. They're retirees who for the first time are needing to use this to get something done in this digital age. By way of the library, patrons are able to access government services, research health information, and enroll in distance learning classes, and even start small businesses. I want to reference the Bill and Melinda Gates, I'd like to, reference the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This is a statistic from 2005 that said new data shows that 98.9% of all public libraries offer free public access to computers and the internet, a growth of more than 400% since 1996, when just 1 in 4 libraries did. Now this statistic, again, is from 2005, but this shows that libraries have constantly been right on the edge. They've been the pioneers in this field of offering this digital inclusion for their communities. It's not a new concept by any means, but in this modern day, it's ever increasing in its urgency. So community needs in a nutshell. This is going to depend on your local community, but for rural communities, digital needs are high. As we just saw, libraries cover all of these. They can provide access to Wi-Fi. They can provide those technology needs for business or personal usage. Libraries also have services for taxes, healthcare, Medicare, and other official business you can do online. And some libraries, through their workshops and classes, will even have experts in to help you with these different issues you're looking for answers on. even to utilize your email for the first time, or a tutorial on keyboarding and desktop skills, something that many people may have never used in your area. These are all different things that a local library is working towards using to serve their area, and they're providing wonderful resources for their patrons in this way. For a final thought, I'd like to reference the American Library Association and how they weigh in on this topic. Based on statistics as of 2021 in a post-COVID world, ALA states that library workers make technology more accessible for every person of every age in our communities, including students, job seekers, and millions of Americans who still lack broadband access and skills. The new survey report details how our nation's public libraries serve as critical infrastructure for bridging digital divides, empowering lifelong learning, and advancing economic recovery. You can see some statistics that I've noted here below. And it states that more than 88% of all public libraries offer formal or informal digital literacy programming. More than 1/3 of public libraries have dedicated digital literacy and technology programs and training staff. So this is wonderful for public libraries to add to the pot for these rural communities and for their patrons. Even further than that, some libraries are even adding in extra things such as help with coding, computer programming, robotics, or even 3D printing in some kind of a makerspace. So there are many options that libraries are affording for their communities. Final conclusions and further thoughts. So digital equity is a necessity in this modern age. As demonstrated in Michigan, especially in these rural areas, it's underrepresented. There are many households and many communities that depend on libraries for their needs. And that's good because libraries are bridging these gaps to access technology. Rural libraries in particular are often reframing their services as a direct result of this need to accommodate communities with their digital offerings. That can have many different looks to it. It could be simply just by adding more computers, but even by adding these mobile hotspots for checkout and other areas or maker spaces. Libraries are evolving. I think that's a wonderful thing about them as institutions. They are responding. They are on the forefront. They're pioneers in this field. And in this realm of digital equity, it's very important to consider all the work libraries have put in to date and where that's going for the future. To wrap up, thank you very much. I would appreciate any comments or questions. I hope everything was clear in the presentation. Apologies for going over the 6-minute mark, but I hope you realize the importance of this topic if it's one you haven't considered before, or maybe you've seen it in your own communities already. I'd be very interested to see everybody else's input or your perspective on it. And thank you once again. Here you'll find my works cited pages, and unless footnoted, all images are free to use without attribution through Canva. And I hope many of you maybe can check out some of the links and find some different articles or check out the Elk Rapids District Library and see all the great work that they are doing. Thank you once again.